Okay, it's Monday, January 10th, after the market closed, and looking at the QQQs. So I guess I'll call this video QQQ Talk. There's a whole bunch of things I would like to cover, so I might jump around a little bit. But since this is my first one of these videos, I think I'll cover a couple of main points first. First of all, this is the 15-minute chart I'm looking here. This is a daily chart at the moment. This is a weekly chart. In a second, I will also change this to a monthly chart to kind of begin to describe some of the key things as you try to combine all the time frames together. But let me go back to the weekly here. And again, I just want to first go over one concept on the 15-minute chart that I look at over and over. It's a consistent way I view things that really helps with strat analysis. And then after that, I'll go into some pure strat analysis, what's developing on the chart, what signals are developing, what some targets seem to be, and just the overall way when you look at the strat, how you kind of have to say if A and B then C, or if C then D. You have to start thinking ahead a little bit how these time frames are unfolding together and what the what possibly is developing and what some of the high probability outcomes might be. So that's kind of where this will lead as I go through it day by day. But for today anyway, this is the 15-minute chart, and let me start here. You'll see here every day has 26 of these bars. And, I can go back to yesterday. Here are the 26 bars yesterday. And I can go back the day before, and here are the 26 bars for that day. So the key points here, and this is something I'll continue to acknowledge every single day as I kind of analyze what's happening on the strat. I want to see the flow of these bars. And I'll try to keep it real simple. This is what I look at. First of all, that opening 15-minute bar, we'll keep that in mind. That's an important reference point all the time, and what happens after that. Secondly, you'll see the way the high or low of any day is usually made early in the session. It could be the first bar. It could be one of the first 2 or 3 bars. It rarely goes beyond, the first 4 or 5 bars, make the high or low of the session. So whatever direction's going to happen usually happens early. It doesn't mean we immediately, if we make the first move down, that we're going to go down all day. We can go down for 2 bars and then start up and we could have a pretty big down move to start the day, but the first 2 bars form the low of the day, and then the next 24 bars can go higher. So the key is it happens early in the session, and that's a directional move. So what we want to, a directional move usually starts from there, whether it's the high or the low. So in this particular case, this was an interesting reversal type of day, which we're going to get into in a second. But this is a bar where we did start down for the first 5 bars. So I would be comfortable calling that a directional move, and where at least initially you're thinking, all right, after 5 bars, this could be the high of the day. But then as we came up and tried to continue that directional move, it failed on, attempt number 2. That's where all of a sudden this particular day shifted. We took out this intraday high, and all of a sudden this became the real low of the day, which you didn't know until you took out the intraday high. But on most days, you'll see that here, the first 2 bars just went up, and then you made your first directional move of the day down. So this becomes the likely high of the day. And then the question is, on a secondary move, are you going to test that low again some point later on in the session? At this point, that was the one directional move of the day. We went sideways for the rest of the day, nothing. Here's a day where you can see the low of the day formed in the first, it looks like 1, 2, 3 bars. We then made one push up directionally, and that's the reference point now. Are we going to make a secondary move higher? Nope, we kind of tried but failed, so we went sideways all day. So you can see here, this day, which is actually a very narrow day, didn't really have much directional movement, but if I had to call it, it was a failure day. This was the first directional move of the day, and then we didn't go higher. Most days are something more like this, where you have an open or somewhere near the open, you make the high of the day, you come down, make a directional move, one, kind of a pause, and then you test that directional move one more time. In this case, we tested it and even moved lower. So it was really just 2 big moves on the day, but they were big moves. Let's look at a day like this. Here's a day again. to me, directional move started early. One, we kind of paused, we tested that area, and then this little rally at the end was just, after this test didn't follow through too much. But essentially, one move, two moves, higher low of the day early in the session. So keep that in mind. I don't want to get more detail on that at the moment, but I always keep that overall structure in mind. And a lot of times, if I'm looking for a strat signal, let's say a buy, here's the daily chart. Let's say I'm looking to buy above this high tomorrow. I will look for this type of structure unfolding to the upside, where the low of the day forms early, we get a push up, and then we pause and maybe try another push up. That structure will confirm that this buy kind of worked on the strat, if you want to think of it that way. So that's that. That's kind of the first topic. The next topic is just let's look at the strat itself and what it's possibly saying for the Qs at this point in time. And this is the interesting way to begin to look at the different time frames and blend them together. So actually, I'm going to start out on the monthly chart here with the Qs, because this is where it all begins to me in terms of what may be developing. You generally look at these different time frames, spread out longer, especially looking at the longer term to see what's going on. Then you can kind of figure out as you get smaller and smaller what may be happening. So the monthly chart here, what happened was we made this new high a couple of months ago. Then we made a 2 down bar. And once when you made that down bar, that's a strat signal. That's a reversal, 2 up, 2 down. That's a signal. When you see that 2 down, you're expecting the target to be the previous bar's low, the first target. If we get through there, as I've discussed before, then we would look at this low target right here. If we then get through there, we will look at this target, and so on and so forth until trade eventually reverses. But at the moment, when we made this first new 2 down low bar right here, which looks like it was in December, the target was down here at the blue line. That's the most recent low. Now, on this next month, January so far, we opened up somewhere in this bar. We didn't make a new high. We actually made a new low. So we have another 2 down bar. And again, we're still in the reference of trying to hit this target. So hitting this target, by the way, what that means is it when you make a new high, and then you may have a reversal signal, you want to see price actioning broadening on that time frame. The only way it can broaden is if you would take out this low. So then therefore, let's say it happened on this bar. We went all the way down here and took out the low. You would see that these 1, 2, 3 bars all broadened out this one green bar. We had a higher high to that bar and we had a lower low to that bar. And that's what you're looking for. If you have a target in place like this and you don't broaden out, that means you're still in a trend condition when if you get a reversal signal. That's the sign of a trend. Like here, you're getting green, then a new high. You're not broadening lower. You get a new high. Here you come down. You don't reach this target, and eventually you continue up and the trend is continuing. So even this red bar, well, this is actually not the greatest example because it's a 3 bar, which I'll talk about another time. But in general, what I'm trying to show is that when you're not broadening out as you kind of make these pullbacks, that shows the trend is likely continuing on that time frame. So in this case, this is what I want to get to now with the Qs, and then I'll wrap it up. We are coming down for the second month in a row after the initial signal, but the question is, are we going to broaden out to that target? And the more and more we don't, and some of the shorter term frames time frames turn up, then we're still within the trend, and you could expect these highs to be taken out eventually. So that's what I see developing here. In other words, we're coming down, but you can see here we got buying the previous month, then we started down this month, and now right early on in this month, or mid-January, we're getting a little buying coming in. So I'm not confident, even though anything's still possible, that we're going to take out this low and broaden, lower. If anything, it looks like price is trying to fail at this level, and eventually we'll get a monthly signal that turns up to confirm that, but that's going to take time because that's going to have to develop on these weekly and daily first. So anyway, now let's go to the weekly chart. Since maybe what I'm thinking here is maybe we're not going to be hitting that target. So I go to the weekly chart and I see what's interesting is we broadened on the weekly chart. And as soon as I look at it, I see this up move, I see down. Then what I see immediately is we made this is the recent action. We made this higher high right here. And now we've come down, we've made lower lows. So this is the broadening action, which the whole key to the strat is that we broaden, we take out stops, whatever it's called. The sellers are out of the way, and then when the buyers step in, they have to be aggressive on the bid because there's no sellers left after all this down broadening action. So now what you have on the weekly chart, and this is just starting. This is the first day of the week here. This is Monday, so we still have 4 days to go before this bar completes. We're at a 2 down condition. So this, by Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we might reverse and head all the way lower. I can't tell yet. But at the moment, we now have an opening price right there on Monday. This is the open, and we close green. So to me, we could be taking, again, it won't be confirmed until the next weekly bar today, this weekly bar closes, and then we get next week, let's say a 2 up. That will show that we're, that's a reversal signal on the weekly chart, which obviously there's 4 days to go. So I don't know how this bar is going to close, and I don't know what next week's going to do. But at the moment, we have a broadening price action, and which is the signal, it's signed to maybe look for a reversal. And you can see so far as of Monday, as long as we hold above the open now, this whole week can continue to turn green. So now let's go to the daily chart, which is right over here. And again, this is the interesting signal type chart, because you have the what this is in candlestick terms. This is like a reversal day. It's called a hammer kind of bar, where you have the tail on the bottom. It's green. You can see that, and you can see on Monday we did start down, but we closed high. You get a green bar. So this is an actionable signal here to go long tomorrow above the high right there. And if that triggers, then our magnitude on the daily time frame is right here. The first, this bar, because that will show that if we head up there tomorrow and break that high, these 2 bars will broaden out on this little, red bar here. Then we might continue higher. If we break that, you'll have to see if we continue that. If we break that, we might be heading up there. And you can see there's almost like what they call, this isn't, well, it might be a good example. It's close enough, like a pivot machine gun, that where, as soon as you break one and the next one's right there and the next one's right there, you can get a big green bar heading up possibly once these stops get taken out one after the other. But, we'll see what happens. So the point being here is, right now, if you take this long trade tomorrow, because it is an actionable signal, 2 down bar, lower low than yesterday, then a 2 up, which would mean you get a higher high and a higher low than yesterday, and it triggers, you would be looking for that magnitude to take profits. And, either you take profits there, or you might want to stay aggressive and see if this bar is taken out, and then this bar, you can do it any way you want. But as long as it broadens out above that bar, it's achieved its goal. Then the question is, if you want to take this tomorrow on a Tuesday, let's say it develops and it hits this magnitude tomorrow, you still have 3 days in the week. Do you want to continue to watch this and see if we turn green by Friday and maybe get a 2 up, which will be a signal on that? So you could actually enter if that happens, you're entering on day number 2 here for a weekly signal that might not happen till next Monday. But, that's just a matter of how you execute trade management. But I think that's a good introduction to how all this stuff fits together and what you're looking for. There's nothing wrong with taking this 2 up by tomorrow, giving you sense that we've broadened out. Here's those broadening, megaphone kind of print on the downside. That's a good signal to try a trade, the very first one. Even a better one might be when we get a reversal next week. This is a good final point. Let's say on the weekly chart, we get something where we get we close up here by the end of the week, then we get a 2 up. All of a sudden, once that 2 ups hit next week, we're targeting all the way up here. And once I know we're targeting up here on the weekly time frame, I can then at some point come to the daily time frame and look for these same type of signals here, feeling very comfortable that we're targeting the broadening high because we got the confirmation on the weekly chart. Right now, we don't have the confirmation on the weekly chart, and that's why this is pretty aggressive here to start, but it's still very acceptable. You just have to figure out, if we just pause here and don't even reach this magnitude and then roll over and do a 2 down, I'll start feeling comfortable. We're now maybe continuing lower on the weekly chart by the time the week ends, and maybe we're going to the monthly magnitude after all. So it's all going to depend what happens here in the next day, even though you can take this signal aggressively and look for that magnitude to be reached. And I guess one final point, if I do take the up buy tomorrow to come back full circle, I'm going to look at my 15-minute structure here to see if we're going to reach that magnitude. That's where that comes into play. If I sense we make an up move here in the 15-minute chart tomorrow, triggers that buy, but then we have the roll, it only the first 2 or 3 bars rolls over and comes down, I'm going to say, uh-oh, that could be the higher day. We could be heading lower. This might fail. This daily chart might, reverse by tomorrow. We can get a 2 down on Wednesday. That's going to turn the whole weekly chart lower, and maybe we're heading lower after all. So that's a lot to digest, but if you captured some of that, you'll see how some of the thinking takes place with all this. And I'll end it for today, and then we'll come back and visit the Qs tomorrow.